did get a request to go over journal entry imports. And so I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do that. And while I do that, I am just going to log into, as many of you may know, like there's the database view and then there's the NXT. So I'm going to show you, I try to always stay in this view if I can, the NXT view, but since this request came, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this. Okay, I'm going to just pause right there. I did also want to say, since there's a lot more of you that are listening in, I always like to have these sessions because when I was in your shoes, I didn't have anyone to speak to. I didn't have, network partner, if I will, another CFO that was in another organization. So if you feel comfortable in the chat, go ahead and type in your name and your title and your email address so that other people can look at that and take that and take an opportunity to build that relationship. Because again, when I was in your shoes, I didn't have anyone to talk with. And it would be helpful for you to have that kind of friendship or build that network with some of you that are on this call. Okay. All right. So I'll pause right there and I will monitor my chat. So if there is any questions that come up, you can either write it in the chat or just unmute yourself and just interrupt me. I'm okay with that. I always like these webinars to be more like a conversation. But if nothing comes up, then I will show you something that either I deemed it might have been important, or in this case, I got a request from one of the participants here today, and I will go ahead and just start off with that. Okay, I'm just going to look here on chat. Okay, all right, cool. So no questions so far, but I will go ahead and start. Okay, so the question that came up today is how do we do imports into the journal entries? Okay. And I will show you, I thought I had my database view open, but maybe not. Didn't quite open up yet. Oh no, I'm getting an error message. Okay, of course that's going to happen while I'm on the call. Okay, starting again. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is that even though I'm going to show you something that you might have seen in the past, and those of you who've been using Financial Edge in the past, and might be familiar with the database view first, that there's a way to import from the database view. But really, what I want to show you is that there's a cool tool that is available only in NXT, and that is that there's an open API, an API that was developed with Microsoft and Blackbaud. And if you go, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen on what this would look like, but I'm going to just take this tab over here. So let's just say we were in a blank Excel document, okay? If you have NXT, and you might have to talk to your IT department to make sure that you can get these apps that are available, but there is something here. If you go to Insert, and then go to Get Add-ins, this will give you access to the Microsoft Store. And if you type in just Blackbaud here, like I'm doing here, and I say search, I'll see all of these tools that are available. And the ones that I love the best is this Budget Creator. And I think I did that on my last webinar, which, by the way, all these webinars are recorded. So if you missed one and want to take the other ones, you can do that and save them locally and use them as training or something like that. Please go ahead and do that. So there's a Budget Creator here. There's a Journal Entry Creator, which is what we're going to do today. There's also this distribution set, which I'll just mention what that is. Like I mentioned with the allocations, some of you might have, inevitably, you might have expenses that go over multiple departments or multiple programs or multiple grants. And you need a mechanism that allows you to take an expense, like, for example, rent, right? Whatever you're paying, or utilities, and you want to distribute them to their fair share of departments, whether it's based on FTEs or square footage or maybe balances of salary accounts or something like that. And so there are different ways to do that. This distribution set allows you to create those percentages based on whatever mechanism you need, and then you can apply those percentages when you're entering an invoice. So if accounts payable person is entering an invoice, and the invoice is $100, you can apply that distribution to all the departments, programs, projects, whatever you want to call them, and it'll put those expenses, their fair share of expenses into those departments, and it'll create the journal entry that allow you to move it from one place into another. Okay, really cool tool. There's also another one, I'll just mention this, statistical units. For those of you who are using the allocations, I will just say you're probably limited to the way the Financial Edge is right now, because the percentage basis is only allowable through balances that are on accounts. So if, let's say, for example, we have an investment account or investment accounts, and there are many projects within that investment account, if you want to distribute interest, dividends, realized, unrealized gains, all that stuff, it would be based on a balance of those accounts, which, for most people it works and that's fine. But there are some organizations that want to distribute those based on either FTEs or square footage or some sort of other mechanism that isn't in your general ledger. And so when you have that, this is the tool that they're creating. It's not finished yet, but it will allow you to put statistical units in there. So if it was like, for example, if you were a hospital foundation and you wanted to do something based on the number of beds that are used, something like that, you could do that and track all that activity in this area. Okay. So when you hit add, if you don't have availability to add, you probably may not be administrator of Financial Edge. So that could be what's blocking you from getting it. If that is the case, you could either do a chat with Blackbaud, and there's probably a knowledge base, or you can reach out to me and I could help you as much as I can. Okay. So once I go ahead and say add, I say continue, you can see up here, this is a regular Excel document, right, that has this tool up there now. And then if I go ahead and click on it, it will, and now I've already done this earlier, so if you weren't logged in, it would ask you to log in, which is something I already did before the call. And so what happens here is that it turned this Financial Edge, this Excel spreadsheet, right? Because all this is that you can see here on the bottom, there's sheet 1, and then there's this new journal entry batch, and then there's sheet 2. So these are all extra sheets. And it turned one of my sheets into an import template. Okay, now this is really cool because you can see that if I click on any one of these, you can see that there's a hyperlink in there. And if I go ahead, and of course, I'm not going to remember the account number, but we'll just try one account number just to see if, oh, good, that was a correct number. Notice that as soon as I put in an account number, it already filled in the account description, because it actually went out into Financial Edge and pulled that account information, and it also filled in additional information here. Okay, this might look familiar to you. If you were in Financial Edge NXT, which I'll go there right now, it's going to look a little bit different. And so I'm in NXT right now, and I go to journal entry, and if I did add a new batch, it's going to look similar, right? I've got my account number column here. I've got my post date, my encumbrance, journal, the reference, debit, credit, and so on and so forth. Some of you may not have all these additional columns here. You may not be using, these are what's called the transaction codes or T codes. If you're not using them, you probably won't see them here. You might just end at class, but that's fine. And by the way, if you do want more information about how to use these transaction codes, I can help you with that as well. Okay, it's just another mechanism for adding additional information to your transactions. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And if I just minimize this again and come back to here, and I will just kind of spread these out a little bit so that you can see them a little bit better. Okay, and so now the way that I see doing this, and for me specifically, when I was in your shoes, I probably would have used it more for like my payroll. So if you have, inevitably some outside company doing your payroll, most payroll companies, and if they don't do this, maybe you should think about getting another one, but they should all pretty much be able to give you a journal entry for all the transactions. And the only thing that you would have to do would be is to map out all those items that are, related to your payroll. And so that technically, if they should be able to give you an Excel spreadsheet that has all the data in it. And then the idea is if they give it to you in an Excel spread, in an Excel spreadsheet, all you'd have to do is copy the account columns, copy the post date, copy the debits and credits. Journal entry is always going to be journal entry. The reference might just be something that would be, each line. You might have specific names for each line depending on how your general ledger is created, or it might just say payroll for the period ended, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you've got your project ID, and some of you call this fund, that's fine. But just keep in mind that's that project segment that Blackbaud defines that I mentioned earlier about tracking grants and programs and things like that. And your class should automatically fill in. And then these are those transaction codes that I was telling you about, okay, that you may not see if you're not using them. Okay. So the idea here is that if I went ahead and copied in here and do this, and so let's just say I'm just going to put some amounts in here, and I am going to try to find some other accounts that are also valid. Of course not. Let's try. I wonder if I could just do this again. And yeah, I'm going to just use the same account for a moment because let's see. Just to show you how it is, I don't have access to all the accounts. I'll do this at 125, and then okay. Project ID. I think that's a valid account. Maybe not. Let's choose 000. Come on, 00. Oh. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just look one up right here. Journal entry projects. I want to use something that's valid so that you can see how it works. All right, 1100 and 2300. 100. People are always messing around with my database, and so it makes it difficult to play sometimes. Okay, so now I've got this journal entry, and of course this is just 3 lines, but you can have as many lines as you wish. But here's the description of the batch. Okay, and I'll just put webinar. Okay, and if there was an account that wasn't valid, I will just do this and just let's just say I'll do this. I want to just show you that you will get, and if I went ahead and submitted this, you'll automatically see that, look, this was highlighted in red, which means this account doesn't exist. So you want to make sure that you have the correct account. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete so we don't get an error message. And really this is it, right? Because this is the sheet, and all I have to do is hit submit, and hopefully I don't get an error. And oh, something's wrong. Oh, okay. So in this database, there is a grant requirement in that fund. So I will go ahead and have to look up a grant. So I have a number, so 100 and 101. Okay, we'll use that. 100 for all of them. All right. We'll try this again. Hit submit. Oh, it still doesn't like me. I don't know. Oh, I think I know why. It's because, oh my goodness. All right, it's probably because I have to use this full name. Oh my goodness. I don't know why it's coming up so big, but I will copy, paste. Let's see. All right, let's try to see if maybe this will give me an error. Of course, it's going to make me look like a liar now. All right, something is weird about this. Ah, it will. All right, I am gonna. I'm just really surprised it's not giving me. Um, 100. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but it still doesn't like my code. All right, I want to try one more thing. And that is go here and go back to my journal entry. And if you are using these transaction codes, you're probably going to be familiar with what I'm kind of doing here. When you have all of these grants here, okay, so I might just use, oh, that's what was going to happen. I'll use the word none and let's see if that helps me. Ah, I can spell. Okay, let's try this. Yay. No. Oh, spendable and unspendable is also one. My gosh. Someone keeps playing with my database and they keep changing it. So this one's going to be spendable. All right. Still, none is invalid. Okay, so now my grant's none is invalid. Okay, I'm kind of like just I'm beating a dead horse here. I don't know why it's invalid. Okay, what happens is there's a lot of us that play with the sample database, and I don't want to use a client's database to play. So, okay, so you'll have to take my word for this. that when if you don't have these transaction codes, you won't have to deal with it. But if it's a required field, it will require you to put data in, and so you have to remember that. So the idea is, I mean, the question that was raised is whether or not to use the like maybe like a copy of an old journal entry verse and then changing the names. So I actually used to do that as well. I would like, especially for my payroll. The reason why I like to copy my old one, because there's another feature in Financial Edge which is called a recurring batch. Okay, and so you can create a batch that has all the defaults in there. But the problem that I had with that is that you could have, let's say, a recurring batch for payroll. Let's just payroll as an example. But at any given month, let's say one person didn't work and you had to take that person out. It would just always, I'd always have to do a lot more manipulation than I needed. And so what I wound up doing is just copying last month's and then just keep adding the lines in the bottom. That made it a little bit easier for me. But I didn't have this tool available. So for me, like I would feel like I would rather have an Excel spreadsheet that has all of my, let's say, my recurring batches, if you will. Even if it didn't have the amounts, you can always type in the amounts early, before you do the import. But the idea would be to go ahead and use this feature and just and then submit it, and it should work. But again, I'm having difficulty, so it's making me look like a liar. But it does work well. Winky, I don't know if I answered your question in terms of whether or not you wanted to use. You were using the copy feature, correct?
Yes, I was using copy, but when you copy the batch, the order changes. And so then you're hunting and packing 50 lines of text. So it's frustrating. So I wanted to make it importable. And I've used this for budget, this add-in type thing for budget. And once you work out all of your errors, which it gives you enough information to do that, it works quite well. So this is helpful to me.
Okay, all right, cool.
Through and finding the errors and fixing them, and then it works.
Thank you. Yep. I still haven't been able to get into my database view, so I don't know if that's a Blackbaud thing or something, because each time it doesn't seem like it is continuing. And I know that Blackbaud's been having some issues. I don't know if any of you have been having some of that some days. I know there are some days that some mornings, I don't know if it's my computer or what. Like you see, it's taking a long time to
It took
load.
me several times this morning to do the same
You had to
thing.
do it. Okay, so I see. It looks like it's about to pop up, but then it also just stops. But does Winky, have you ever done any imports from the database view, like an
That's
actual
actually,
import?
that's how she taught me to do it. But like I said, she only showed it to me one time. And so I haven't been able to do it again.
Okay, all right. I do just want to show you how this works, because what I like about this, even though you probably will never use it, but it makes you understand the system a little bit better, because in the import feature, it allows you to look at like each field, and it just, kind of has like a mapping already done. Like, I mean, it gives you a mapping option, if you will, where you match the option, the fields to the columns in the Excel document. And I want to show you this, but it is not behaving at all. See, it just disappears, and I don't see it anywhere. Yeah, I don't understand why that's having a problem today. So am I? Oh, something's happening. Give us a second here. Oh, yay. Okay, so we're in it. All right. So what I wanted to, there's the other feature here that is that this is the one that I used to use before NXT, is that if you go into the general ledger and you're in the journal entry batch area, and it's super slow. If I went to create a new batch, there is a feature here. Well, first of all, I'll have to say something, call it batch. Okay. There's a feature here that says, see, you go up to batch and it says import transactions. Hit save here. And what it will do is, I will go ahead and use this. And this is, if any of you have done any imports from the database view, because I mean, the only import that's available in NXT is the one that I just showed you, and the budget one, by the way. So those two work this way. But if you were to import invoices or vendors, if you have a lot of vendors, I mean, typically we'll do those when we first set up the system. But if you had to do that, you could use this feature. And what I just want to show you is that you've got these 4 boxes here. You've got some information whether you want to import new accounts or update existing accounts. If you're using like account attributes, or in NXT they call them custom fields, this is where you can update a whole bunch of documents all at once. I mean, of course, you'd have to have them in Excel or in what we would call a CSV document, but which is very similar to Excel. You'd be able to access that. And really, this is the part that, if I can get here, yes, okay. So I'm gonna make this larger. Oh, no, don't go away. Oh, no. Oh, Financial Edge. Oh, come on. Okay, it's not behaving at all today. Okay. I am going to get out of here, and I'm going to just see if I can do this from another way. Administration, import records. Okay, so I'll just use accounts. Oh, I'm getting like, all right, this is bad. I probably need to shut down my computer and start all over again because it's not behaving at all. When that happens, I usually just log off and log back in and maybe even shut down my computer. But we'll might have to save that for a future webinar. But I will say this, a lot of times people don't use imports anymore, especially when you're in, if you are using NXT, typically people would import journal entries, which that tool is available through that Excel. There's also budgeting imports that people do quite a bit even after they've gone live. But a lot of times clients want to update import invoices, and that there is a tool, which is what I kind of wanted to show you. There isn't an API the way that the journal entry is, but that's what I wanted to show you is how to import invoices if you had them from another, like maybe you have a third party that's doing your actual transactions or paying your bills. I've been seeing a lot of that where people have been outsourcing accounts payable. That's something that's really cool. I mean, they can do that and they can send you the information the way that they do payroll. But really, if you have NXT, really the best tool that I always just kind of say is this expense management. If you're not using this, this is a great tool, because what this allows you to do is give access to people within your organization to input invoices. So if you have an organization where there's multiple departments or multiple locations and things like that, and each location gets their own invoices. And typically what would have to happen is that those locations would have to send you send it to the accounting department to pay. Well, how about we change that? How about you use this expense management tool? And it's very basic. There isn't a lot of stuff. So if you ever heard of Concur, that would be this, but on steroids, because it gives you so much more functionality. But if you're just using to want to enter invoices, what's cool about this feature is that people can log in, and these people that log in aren't necessarily accountants. They're people that are outside the accounting department, and they can come in here, and they're not even using a full license. They use a special license so that it's cheaper for you. But the idea here is that if I click on new request, I get this blank sheet of paper here that allows me to choose the vendor, the invoice number, the date, the description of what I bought. And here's where what I love, and auditors love this too, and that is you can send this invoice through an approval process. Okay, and we can choose that approval process, whether it's something that goes through one person, or maybe it has levels where you can say, my immediate supervisor can approve everything under 1,000, but if it was over 1,000, it needs to go to her supervisor, and if it was over $10,000, it needs to go to the CEO. Blah blah blah. You can create those levels that are appropriate for your organization. Okay. Expense detail. And then here's the other part that I love is that, remember what I said, that these people are not accountants, right? So they don't know that the salary account is 01500000, blah, blah, blah. But what they can do, or what we do as accountants, when we set this up, we set up what are called expense categories. Okay, so if they want to get reimbursed for car rental, or if they're submitting a bill, I've just got a few here. Office supplies, if they bought supplies and they got the bill and they want to submit it, they just have to choose the category. And then we, as the accountants, have put the account number in the category. So they don't have to think about that. And all they do is choose it, and then it becomes, and then they don't even have to see the information about where it's going, but we could also just turn it on where it would show it. Okay, and I just got to put an amount in here in order for it to show. All right, it's not doing it. Supplies. Okay, here we go. Okay, and then of course this part right here, drag and file an invoice. Right, if this is a reimbursement, they can take a picture of it with their phone. They can do this on their phone. They don't have to go to a computer, and submit the receipt right through their phone. If they're traveling, they can do that. And then this becomes part of the invoice record. And then once it's submitted, it goes through that approval process that I mentioned. And each person that sees it has the ability to approve it or reject it or make changes to it, whatever. And the idea is that when the last person approves it, that's when it hits your general ledger. Okay. And this functionality that I'm describing right here works super well for that type of, again, if it's not as complex, If you're not using something like this, this is going to work great. But if you're already using something that's a little bit more advanced, you might be thinking, okay, it might be lacking in certain things. But again, it's a great in-between step. If you find that you're going to use this more and more, you might want to look at something a little bit more powerful, or if by then, if Blackbaud has added functionality, then you get to use it. Okay, but the part I'm gonna hit cancel here, but I just want to show. Oh, before I hit cancel, there's another feature that's related to this, which is the credit cards, and you can connect the credit cards that you give to your employees. You'd be able to set up a feed with that credit card company, and then each person that has that credit card, they can log in again to this part of the system and not see anything else. And they can't change anything. They can't add vendors. You know, you have full security rights, you know, to give them what they can and cannot see. And the idea is that just to give them access on these things so that what the screen would look like, and I'm not connected to a credit card, so you wouldn't be able to see it, but it would be this screen, except that on this left-hand side, there would be a feed that would give you all the transactions that that person has, you know, made within that day. And you can hit refresh and it'll constantly refresh. And then each one that they choose, they can fill out this form that's related to that transaction. So really cool. But I know if you have credit cards, chasing people for those receipts is always a hassle, right? So that's a great way to put the onus on them, and so that just kind of relieves the pressure off the accounting department, you know, in managing those types of expenses, right? I mean, credit cards was a big mess years ago when I used to do it, because I had to pay the bill way before I got any of the receipts from anybody. So I always had to choose like a clearing account, and you know, and that has its faults, right? I don't want to put something in my clearing account, especially if it's a grant related expense. I need to go into that month. And so, so you're doing a lot of cleanup when you don't have this feature. Okay.